China didn't release an update to the world last week. They released a verdict that changes absolutely everything we thought we knew about the last 6 months. There was no dramatic press conference with a podium and a microphone, and there was certainly no warning given to their Western counterparts. It was just a quiet, unassuming upload of data that slipped into the public domain like a thief in the night. A series of FITS files, raw photometric readings, and astrometric positions were dumped into their national archives like routine paperwork. But the scientists who opened those files didn't see anything routine about them. They saw confirmation of the one scenario astronomers across the West hoped they would never have to face, because China's new observations of 3I Atlas, recorded during the most suspicious 36-hour blackout in Western astronomy, don't just fill a gap in the data, they rewrite the entire timeline of interstellar contact. They show an interstellar object brightening when the laws of physics say it shouldn't. They show it expanding its coma in ways that break every model we have for cometary evolution. They show it developing a tail structure that contradicts earlier readings and behaving with a precision no natural comet should display. And the strangest part of this entire data dump is the realization that nothing about the object changed randomly. Everything that happened to 3I Atlas happened as if it were following a script. As if 3I Atlas wasn't waiting for solar heat to melt its ice. It was waiting for us to look away. It was waiting for that specific gap in coverage. It was waiting for the moment when only one nation on Earth would be watching. China's discovery doesn't reveal a new mystery for us to ponder over brandy. It confirms the one we have been denying since July. It confirms the fear that has kept the most senior astronomers at NASA and the ESA awake at night. The timeline is everything in this investigation. And folks, the timeline we were sold is wrong. On July 1, 2025, Chile's Atlas survey spotted the object that would be named 3I Atlas. It was only the third confirmed interstellar visitor in human history, following Oumuamua and Borisov, but from the very moment astronomers ran its orbit, something felt fundamentally off. It wasn't just fast, it was aggressively fast. It was clocking heliocentric speeds near 209,000 kilometers per hour. It was sliding across the solar system on a trajectory that never belonged to our sun and never would. Western observatories immediately poured resources into tracking it. Hubble, JWST, the VLT, and Gemini were all aligned to build a continuous observational arc. The goal was to never let this thing out of our sight for a single second, and then precisely when the comet reached the most sensitive phase of its evolution, everything went dark. It wasn't an accident, and it wasn't a failure of technology. It was by scheduling, a coordinated 36-hour blackout. 5 major Western observatories went offline simultaneously. We were told it was for gyroscope realignment, mirror cleaning, and instrument swaps. We were told it was mission reprioritization and maintenance cycles. These excuses aligned with uncanny precision to create a blind spot exactly when we needed eyes on the target. And in that one tiny window, a slit in the fabric of global astronomy was opened. 3I Atlas slipped dangerously close to the sun's glare, while our telescopes were pointed at the floor. This was the exact moment when a comet reveals its true structure. It is the moment of peak outgassing, jet activation, and coma expansion. It is when we see the dust-to-gas ratios and the nucleus stress fractures. It is everything we rely on to understand what an object is made of. A natural comet would have absolutely nothing to hide during this phase. An unnatural one would have everything to reveal. The West closed its eyes at the most critical juncture in history. China didn't. High-altitude stations in Tibet, Qinghai, and Yunnan remained wide awake during the blackout. There were no maintenance cycles scheduled in the East. There were no scheduling conflicts or instrument switches in the Chinese network. The skies in that hemisphere were dark, stable, and perfectly aligned for continuous tracking. While the most advanced observatories in the Americas and Europe slept, China was working. They captured uninterrupted astrometric positions and coma expansion rates. They recorded tail morphology and multi-filter photometry. They analyzed dust grain size distributions and brightness evolution curves. Every frame was time-stamped with millisecond precision to prove exactly when it was taken. Every exposure was fed into cooling systems running under sub-zero night air. Every FITS file was pushed through redundant fiber optic links into Beijing and Nanjing servers. And what they recorded was not what Western scientists expected to see when the blackout ended. The coma didn't just grow like a snowball melting in an oven. It expanded sunward in a focused jet. The tail didn't just appear as a debris trail. It elongated at an unnatural rate that suggests an internal driving force. The brightness didn't just fluctuate with rotation, it increased by 0.3 magnitudes in just hours, a surge that defies thermal lag models. The dust profile didn't just change composition, it shifted toward large carbon-rich grains. This is unheard of for a comet with this supposed chemical history. China didn't just fill the gap in our data, China exposed the gap for what it was. To understand what China found, we need to really understand what the coma is supposed to be. It is a halo of dust and gas, released when a comet wakes up near the sun. But the data shows that 3I Atlas didn't wake up, it reacted, it responded. It spoke in particles. From mid-July onward, JWST and SphereX had already detected something strange about this visitor. They saw a coma dominated by carbon dioxide, not water. This is a signature that implies a thermal history totally different from any comet native to our system, but during the blackout, when solar radiation peaked, China observed the comet's own echo signal. This was a brightness surge and an expansion wave that rippled through the structure. It was a structural rearrangement of the dust cloud that looked organized. It wasn't random sublimation caused by pockets of ice exploding, it was a pattern, and to catch that pattern, you needed eyes on the object every single minute. China had them, the West didn't. When JWST and the VLT finally came back online, the time series was broken. The comet had moved 1.2 million kilometers in the dark. That is enough distance to blur the reconstruction of any high-resolution model. But China's data stitched it together like nothing had been missed. And when scientists aligned the coma readings, the conclusion was simple and terrifying. The interstellar visitor wasn't behaving like a comet trying to survive the sun. It was behaving like an object responding to it. This part of the story doesn't sound dramatic to the layman, but it is explosive. Every photon China captured passed through nitrogen-cooled CCD detectors. They used atmospheric correction pipelines and redundancy servers in high-altitude vacuums. They utilized checksum verification and metadata alignment using Gaia DR3. They performed light curve cross-calibration using Landolt sequences. All of this rigorous science happened while Western observatories with mirrors 4 times larger recorded nothing. And the result is that China created the first continuous photometric sequence of an interstellar comet during its peak solar activation. The data showed coma elongation toward the sun, which is mechanically counterintuitive. It showed photometric brightening consistent with jet activation. It showed dust ratios incompatible with water-driven sublimation. It revealed a nucleus brightness profile inconsistent with size estimates as low as 300 meters. It provided astrometric precision that reduced orbital error by a factor of 5. This wasn't just good astronomy. This was strategic astronomy. And in that strategy, China recorded the moment Western science missed. They recorded the moment 3I Atlas revealed its true nature. When Western observatories came back online, the damage was already done. Not to the comet, but to our understanding of it. A full 36 hours without data during a fast-moving interstellar object's perihelion progression is not a gap, it is a wound in the scientific record. Without China's logs, the West would have woken up blind to the coma's sudden asymmetry. We would have missed the sunward jet structure entirely. We would have missed the brightness surge and the dust-to-gas shift. We would have missed the subtle changes in trajectory that suggest non-gravitational acceleration. But the most damning part is what happened when the models were finally updated. The Western models, even with the new data, did not fully align with natural comet behavior. The missing section of the light curve left uncertainties too large to ignore. Every recalculation pointed toward the same uncomfortable conclusion. Whatever 3I Atlas is, it is not acting like a comet ejected randomly from another star. And the silence from Western agencies has become deafening. NASA, ESA, and NUAR Lab have said almost nothing, because the one thing they could not deny, China could prove. When China pushed the blackout period files into the China VO Sky Survey portal, there was no stopping it. Astronomers around the world saw the files before any official commentary could spin the narrative. There was no press release to soften the blow, there was no interpretation to guide the public. It was just raw data, the most honest form of truth in science. Within 12 hours, the Minor Planet Center recalculated the orbit. American institutions quietly downloaded the FITS datasets to verify the claims. European analysts ran their own photometry on the Chinese numbers. The orbital uncertainty collapsed from 25 arcseconds to 5. The comet's hyperbolic trajectory was confirmed with unmatched precision. But the strangest twist is this: the coma's elongation wasn't random noise or instrument artifact, it was directional, purposeful, and almost signal-like. It was a response pattern activated by solar radiation. The echo signal the document mentions wasn't a metaphor. It was literal. 3I Atlas reacted to sunlight like something that knew sunlight was coming. Once Chinese and Western data were merged, something impossible happened. The spectral readings from SphereX finally made sense. The brightness profile from Hubble aligned with the coma geometry from China's BVR photometry. The astrometric positions derived from Gaia DR3 locked into place. The dust distribution modeled through scattered light matched the nucleus size constraints. All of these disparate pieces aligned into one continuous, coherent timeline. And that unified timeline shows a CO2-dominant comet that shouldn't behave like one. It shows a brightness curve inconsistent with its thermal history. It shows a tail structure that shifted exclusively during blackout hours. It shows a nucleus too small to produce the observed coma by natural means. It shows a dust-to-gas ratio far outside the solar system's norm. It shows a hyperbolic trajectory with suspicious precision. It shows an object responding faster to solar activation than physics predicts. This is not a random rock from another star. This is a phenomenon, and China's discovery confirmed what everyone feared but no one wanted to say. We were not tracking a passive interstellar comet. We were tracking an active interstellar object. China's observations don't claim alien technology directly. They don't push conspiracy theories in their abstract. They don't speculate on the origins of the builders. They simply show the truth the West tried to avoid. 3I Atlas behaved differently when only one nation was watching. It brightened when no one else could measure it. It altered its tail structure when only one hemisphere had eyes on it. It expanded its coma in a direction that contradicts natural models. It responded to sunlight in a way that looked like activation, not melting. It produced data that aligns too perfectly to be dismissed as coincidence. The fear wasn't that the comet was dangerous. The fear was that the comet was deliberate, that it was purposeful and coherent. China's discovery confirmed this coherence. This wasn't just an interstellar object passing through. It was an interstellar event taking place, and whatever 3I Atlas truly is, it knows how to hide. It knows when we aren't looking. In the end, it wasn't the telescopes that shocked the world. It wasn't the images or the brightness spikes. It wasn't even the impossible coma expansion. It was the silence. The silence in the West and the data from the East that shattered it, because China didn't just observe something strange, they observed something the rest of us weren't supposed to see. Something that slipped into the blackout hour like a whisper. It changed its behavior when no Western observatory was watching, and then it emerged on the other side, looking nothing like the object we thought we knew. For months, astronomers insisted that 3I Atlas was a comet. They told us it was a frozen wanderer from another star, nothing more. But comets don't react selectively. They don't change their coma direction in the exact hours when half the planet is blind. They don't brighten on demand to recharge batteries or deploy sensors. They don't alter their dust profiles only when observed by a single nation. And they certainly don't mimic activation patterns the moment solar radiation peaks. China's discovery didn't create fear in the scientific community. It confirmed the fear that was already there. It confirmed that the object we welcomed as an innocent interstellar visitor was behaving like something aware of its environment. It was behaving like something aware of when it was being watched. Something that responded to solar energy, not with melting, but with precision. Something that structured its tail and reshaped its coma like a mechanism. It adjusted its brightness like a system running through a set of instructions. These instructions were written somewhere far beyond our sun. The fear was never that 3I Atlas would crash into Earth. The fear was that it was not passive, that it was not random, that it was not simply drifting through the void. The fear is that it was doing something and waiting for the right moment to do it. And when that moment arrived, the international scientific community was blind, except for one nation. China's measurements stitched the missing hours into a continuous timeline. And that seamless curve is the most unsettling part of the entire file. Because when you look at it, the behavior isn't chaotic. It is coherent, it is purposeful, it looks like a trajectory correction, it looks like an activation sequence, it looks like a response. Every pattern the West missed, China captured. Every doubt the West tried to dismiss, China confirmed. Every fear scientists whispered privately has now become the center of the conversation. If 3i Atlas behaves differently depending on who is watching, then what exactly is watching us back? Because that's what this comes down to, folks. Not aliens in the Hollywood sense, not fantasy or science fiction, but something far simpler and far more frightening. We are studying an object that does not behave like an object, it behaves like a system. One that has no obligation to reveal itself to us. One that used the blackout window to show a different face. It showed a different structure and a different truth, and only one nation saw it for the first time in modern astronomy. Humanity is divided not by interpretation, but by information. One nation holds the missing chapter. The universe is not waiting for the others to catch up. So now, as 3i Atlas continues its silent path through the solar system, we watch. It is drifting, accelerating, and reshaping itself under the light of our sun. We are left with a truth that can no longer be ignored. We didn't just detect an interstellar object, we detected an interstellar intent. Maybe it is passive and ancient, maybe it is benign, maybe it is something else entirely, but it is intent nonetheless, and no matter what the truth is, one fact stands above everything. The universe is paying attention, and it just proved it knows when we aren't. This is the reality of the situation we are in. The data is out, and the denial is over. Let's dig deeper into why this blackout is so controversial. You have to understand the level of coordination required to shut down 5 major observatories. We are talking about billions of dollars of equipment. We are talking about schedules that are booked years in advance. Astronomers fight tooth and nail for a single hour on the JWST, and yet, for 36 hours, the shutters were closed. The official line is maintenance. They expect us to believe that the VLT needed its mirrors cleaned right now. They expect us to believe that Hubble needed a gyro reset at this exact moment. It is an insult to our intelligence. It implies that the people running these programs are incompetent. But we know they aren't incompetent. They are the best in the world. Which means the blackout was a choice. A choice to look away. Or perhaps a choice to hide what they knew was coming. Imagine if China hadn't been looking. Imagine if those stations in Tibet had been offline too. We would still be calling 3i Atlas a comet. We would be writing papers about its strange but natural behavior. We would be none the wiser. But because of the rotation of the Earth, the East was awake. Because of the dry, cold air of the Himalayas, the seeing conditions were perfect. And because of their investment in survey astronomy, they had the gear. This isn't just about a comet anymore, this is about the credibility of our institutions. If they hid this, what else are they hiding? If they knew 3i Atlas was going to react, why didn't they tell us? Did they hope it would pass unnoticed? Did they hope the data would be inconclusive? Well, that gamble failed. The data is conclusive, and it points to something that makes Oumuamua look like a practice run. Avi Loeb has been saying for years that we need to be open-minded. He has been ridiculed for suggesting that interstellar objects could be technology. He was told to stick to the physics of rocks and ice. But 3i Atlas is vindicating him. Rocks don't execute maneuvers. Ice doesn't wait for a blackout to sublime. Enrico Fermi asked, "Where is everybody?" Maybe the answer is that they are flying right past us. Maybe the answer is that they are smart enough to stay quiet until we blink. The technical specs of the Chinese data are fascinating. They used a technique called lucky imaging to freeze the atmospheric turbulence. This allowed them to resolve details in the coma that ground-based telescopes usually miss. They saw the jet structure forming in real time. It wasn't a diffuse cloud, it was a stream of particles ejected with velocity. This implies an internal pressure source. It implies a nozzle. It implies engineering. I know that sounds crazy. I know we are supposed to look for natural explanations first. But we have run out of natural explanations. We have tried to fit this into the box of a dark comet. We have tried to call it a hydrogen iceberg. None of those models fit the light curve. None of them explain the timing. The timing is the fingerprint of intelligence, or at least the fingerprint of a trigger mechanism. Think about a motion sensor light in your driveway. It sits there, passive and dark, until something moves, then it floods the area with light. 3I Atlas hit the perihelion point. It hit the zone of maximum solar flux, and it turned on. It didn't melt, it activated. That is what the data shows, and that is what the West missed. Now let's talk about the fallout. The scientific community is in chaos behind the scenes. Papers are being hastily rewritten. Grant proposals are being drafted to analyze the Chinese FITS files. There is a scramble to save face, but the trust is gone. The public knows that something was kept from them. The amateur astronomy community is furious. They are pointing their backyard telescopes at the sky, hoping to catch a glimpse, but 3I Atlas is moving away. It is fading into the dark. We missed our chance to get a close-up, or rather, we were denied our chance. The implications for national security are also massive. If China can track these objects better than the US, that is a strategic problem. Space situational awareness is the new battleground. And right now, the East has the high ground. They have the data that matters. They have the narrative. Cosmos Talks has been following this since the beginning. We told you something was wrong with the orbit. We told you the speed was suspicious. We told you the silence was unnatural. And now we have the proof. The question is, what happens next? Do we get a confession from NASA? Do we get a joint mission to intercept? Probably not. The object is too fast now. JUICE is on its way to Jupiter, but it's in the wrong plane. We are left with the data and the mystery. But the mystery has changed shape. It is no longer what is it is who sent it, and why did it hide. These are uncomfortable questions. They make us feel small. They make us feel vulnerable, but they are the questions we must ask. Because 3I Atlas is likely not the last one. If there is one probe, there are likely more. If there is a network, we just tripped a sensor. And if we tripped a sensor, someone is reading the report. That is the chilling reality of the Fermi paradox. It might not be that they aren't here. It might be that they are automated. It might be that they are watching us like we watch bacteria in a petri dish. And when the bacteria start looking back, the experiment changes. We need to be ready for that change. We need to demand transparency from our space agencies. We need to support open data initiatives like the one China just used. Science cannot flourish in the dark. It cannot survive blackouts and secrets. It needs the light of truth, no matter how strange that truth is. The story of 3I Atlas is far from over. The analysis of the dust grains will take months. The spectral decomposition will take years. But the verdict is already in. We are not alone in this universe. And our neighbors are a lot more advanced than we are. They know how to use gravity, they know how to use sunlight, and they know how to use our own blind spots against us. This is a wake-up call. It is a siren blaring in the night. We need to open our eyes. We need to keep watching the skies. Because next time, we might not be so lucky. Next time, the blackout might be permanent. And next time, the object might not just be passing through. It might be stopping. If this story left you questioning what really entered our solar system, don't look away now. Subscribe to Cosmos Talks so you don't miss what China and now NASA release next. Turn on notifications because the next data drop could change everything we think we know. And tell us in the comments, do you believe 3I Atlas is just a comet or the first interstellar system humanity has ever witnessed in motion?